In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of all the worlds. We praise Him, we seek His help, and we seek His forgiveness. Ramadan is not just a month on the calendar, it is a rare invitation from Allah to come closer, to be forgiven, and to rise spiritually in ways that may not return again. We fast, we pray, we recite the Qur'an, and our hearts feel alive. Yet many people walk through this blessed month without realizing that a single mistake repeated daily can silently erase the reward of their worship. Tonight, we are not here to talk about the obvious sins, but about the hidden spiritual errors that weaken our connection with Allah. If we truly want Ramadan to transform us, we must first recognize what can destroy its blessings. That is why today we reflect on one crucial question: which mistake in Ramadan can waste our good deeds, and how can we protect our efforts from being lost? When we talk about the danger of intention without sincerity, we are touching the very foundation of every act of worship. In Ramadan, our days are filled with fasting, our nights with prayer, our tongues with dhikr, yet all of it stands on one fragile thing: what is in the heart. The Prophet taught us that actions are judged by intentions, and this means that the value of our fasting is not measured by hunger or thirst, but by who we are fasting for. A person can stay hungry from dawn to sunset and still walk away with nothing except exhaustion, simply because the heart was not aligned with Allah. In Ramadan, sincerity is tested more than any other time. Everyone is fasting, everyone is praying, everyone is sharing reminders and worship publicly. It becomes easy to blend in, to worship because others are watching, or because it is expected. Some people fast because their family is fasting. Some pray because the masjid is full. Some give charity because Ramadan is known for generosity. On the surface, everything looks beautiful, but Allah does not look at the surface. He looks at the heart. He looks at whether this worship is done seeking His pleasure or seeking approval, praise, or a sense of spiritual superiority. One of the most subtle dangers is when worship turns into habit rather than devotion. We fast automatically, break our fast automatically, pray Taraweeh automatically, without stopping to ask ourselves why. The heart becomes absent while the body remains obedient. Over time, this emptiness slowly drains the reward from our deeds. The fast becomes a routine, the prayer becomes movement, the Qur'an becomes sound, and the soul remains untouched. This is how sincerity quietly slips away without us even noticing. Another form of lost sincerity is when we begin to admire our own deeds. We start counting how many juz we read, how many rakahs we prayed, how consistent we were. Instead of feeling humble, we feel proud. Instead of feeling small before Allah, we feel accomplished. This inner pride is dangerous because it shifts the focus from Allah's mercy to our own effort. The believer should always feel that no matter how much they do, it is never enough to thank Allah for His blessings. The moment we feel secure because of our deeds, sincerity begins to crack. Social validation is another test of intention in Ramadan. In an age of sharing, even worship can become content. A reminder posted, a charity shared, a masjid selfie after Taraweeh. None of these are automatically wrong, but the question remains, if no one saw this, would I still do it? If the answer is no, then sincerity needs repair. Allah does not need witnesses to our worship. He only needs a heart that is honest. Sincerity also fades when worship is motivated by fear of people rather than fear of Allah. Some people fast to avoid judgment, pray to avoid criticism, or act religious to protect their image. This kind of intention empties worship of its soul. Ramadan is meant to free us from people, not tie us more tightly to their opinions. To protect our deeds, we must constantly renew our intention. Every fast should begin with a conscious reminder, I am doing this for Allah alone. Every prayer should carry the feeling, I stand before my Lord, not before people. We must ask Allah for sincerity because it is not something we control fully. The companions of the Prophet feared hypocrisy in their hearts despite their immense faith. If they were afraid, how much more should we be cautious? Ramadan is not about how much we do, but how pure our hearts are while doing it. A small deed done sincerely can outweigh mountains of worship done for the wrong reasons. If we want our good deeds to survive, to rise, and to be accepted, sincerity must come first, quietly, humbly, and only for Allah. When we speak about the tongue that harms while the body fasts, we are addressing one of the most common reasons why Ramadan loses its true power. Fasting is not only abstaining from food and drink, it is a discipline of the entire self. Yet many people protect their stomachs while leaving their tongues completely uncontrolled. They fast physically, but their words continue to wound, divide, and destroy. This is one of the most dangerous contradictions of Ramadan, because it turns a sacred act into a hollow ritual. The Prophet warned us clearly that a person may fast and gain nothing from it except hunger and thirst. Why? Because the tongue was not fasting. Lying, gossiping, backbiting, arguing, mocking, complaining, and spreading negativity all continue as usual. The body may be weak from fasting, but the ego remains loud, and every harmful word spoken during fasting carries a heavier weight, because it contradicts the very purpose of this act of worship. Ramadan is meant to soften the heart, but an uncontrolled tongue hardens it. When we speak badly about others, we feed our ego while starving our soul. Backbiting especially is a silent killer of good deeds. A person can spend hours in worship, then in a single conversation erase the reward by speaking about someone who is not present. What makes this even more tragic is that many people treat such speech as normal conversation, not realizing that they are handing their rewards away piece by piece. Arguments are another test of the fasting tongue. Hunger and fatigue make tempers short, and small issues turn into big conflicts. But the Prophet taught us that when fasting, if someone provokes you, your response should not be anger, but restraint. The true strength of fasting is not in enduring hunger, but in control. Ling reaction. When we raise our voices, insult others, or insist on winning arguments, we prove that the fast has not reached our character. Complaining is another subtle harm of the tongue in Ramadan. Complaining about hunger, about tiredness, about long days, about short nights, as if fasting is a burden rather than an honor. Every complaint weakens gratitude, and gratitude is the soul of worship. Ramadan is a gift that millions never live to see, yet some speak of it as an inconvenience. This attitude drains the sweetness from fasting and replaces it with resentment. In today's world, the tongue has extended into keyboards and screens. Messages, comments, posts, and voice notes all carry the same weight as spoken words. Spreading rumors, engaging in online arguments, humiliating others publicly, or sharing unverified information are all forms of a tongue that is not fasting. Ramadan does not excuse this behavior, it exposes it. The fast is meant to discipline us, not pause only our eating. What makes the tongue so dangerous is how small it feels compared to its impact. A single sentence can break a heart, destroy trust, or ignite hatred, and on the day of judgment, people will be shocked to see how much of their worship was consumed by careless words. This is why guarding the tongue is not optional in Ramadan. It is essential. To protect our fasting, we must consciously train our speech. Silence is better than harmful words. Kind speech is better than silence. Remembering Allah is better than empty talk. Before speaking, we must ask ourselves, will this please Allah or satisfy my ego? If it does not bring benefit, it is safer to let it go. Ramadan is a school of self-control. If the tongue does not learn discipline in this month, it will struggle for the rest of the year. A fast that reaches the tongue reaches the heart, and only the fast that transforms character is the fast that truly survives. When we reflect on worship without the presence of the heart, we uncover a quiet tragedy that happens to many sincere people in Ramadan. They pray, they recite, they stand long hours in Tarawih, yet their hearts are elsewhere. The body is in worship, but the soul is distracted. This kind of worship looks complete on the outside, but inside it is fragile. And when the heart is absent, the deed loses much of its life and power. Allah does not need our movements, He wants our attention. Salah is meant to be a private meeting with our Lord, but for many it becomes rushed motions, familiar words and wandering thoughts. The lips move while the mind travels through worries, plans and memories. By the time the prayer ends, the heart has not tasted even a moment of closeness. Ramadan comes and goes, and the same empty cycle repeats, leaving a person wondering why they feel unchanged despite so much worship. One reason the heart disconnects is because worship becomes mechanical. We learn the actions early in life, and over time they turn into habit. Habit is dangerous when it replaces awareness. The Qur'an is recited quickly, not to understand or reflect, but to complete a portion. The prayer is performed to finish on time, not to stand humbly before Allah. When completion becomes the goal, presence disappears. Distractions also steal the heart from worship. Phones, notifications, and constant mental noise follow us even into prayer. The heart struggles to slow down because it has been trained to constantly react. We stand before Allah, yet our minds are still in the dunya. This is not because we are bad believers, but because we have not protected the sacred space of worship. The heart cannot focus if it is never given rest. Another danger is when worship is done without emotional connection. We recite verses about Jannah and Jahannam, mercy and punishment, yet feel nothing. Tears do not come, humility does not settle, fear and hope do not move us. Over time, this emotional numbness becomes normal. A heart that does not respond is not a dead heart, but it is a heart that is tired and neglected. Worship without the heart can also lead to arrogance or despair. Some people feel proud because they are consistent, while others feel hopeless because they feel nothing. Both reactions miss the point. The goal of worship is not emotion, but sincerity and awareness. Even when the heart feels heavy, showing up with honesty matters. But ignoring the absence of the heart and continuing without reflection allows emptiness to grow. To revive presence in worship, we must slow down. Fewer rak'ahs with awareness are better than many without it. Understanding the meaning of what we recite transforms prayer from routine into conversation. Standing before Allah with the awareness that this could be our last prayer changes everything. Presence begins when we remember who we are standing before. We must also ask Allah for a living heart. The Prophet taught us that hearts are between the fingers of Allah and only He can turn them. Presence is a gift, not an achievement. When we ask sincerely, Allah responds. Ramadan is an opportunity to reconnect the heart with worship. If our prayers do not soften us, if the Qur'an does not move us, then the problem is not Ramadan, it is distance. A deed without the heart may still exist, but a deed with the heart is the one that transforms, heals, and survives. When we talk about pride in deeds instead of humility, we are addressing a mistake that is extremely subtle, yet incredibly destructive. It often appears after a person has increased in worship, not before. In Ramadan, when someone fasts consistently, prays at night, recites Qur'an, and avoids major sins, the ego quietly begins to whisper. Instead of feeling grateful, the heart starts to feel superior. This is dangerous because pride can erase the reward of deeds faster than sin itself. Pride changes the way we see ourselves and others. A person begins to compare their worship with those around them. They notice who comes late to prayer, who does not fast properly, who is inconsistent. Slowly, the heart moves from self-criticism to self-admiration. The believer forgets that guidance is not earned, it is gifted. Every act of worship we perform is only possible because Allah allowed it. The moment we believe it is our own strength, we disconnect from that mercy. One of the signs of pride is looking down on others. Instead of feeling concern for those who struggle, we feel judgment. Instead of making dua for them, we silently feel better than them. This attitude poisons the heart. Ramadan is meant to humble us through hunger and dependence on Allah. Yet pride turns fasting into a badge of honor rather than an act of submission. Pride also appears when we expect recognition for our deeds. We want appreciation for our sacrifice, acknowledgement for our consistency, and validation for our effort. When it does not come, we feel irritated or unmotivated. This reveals that the heart was attached to people, not to Allah. True humility means being content even if no one ever knows what you did, because Allah knows. Another dangerous form of pride is feeling safe because of worship. A person begins to think that because they pray, fast, and do good, they are secure. They forget their sins, minimize their mistakes, and assume acceptance. This false sense of security weakens repentance. The believer should always live between hope and fear, hoping in Allah's mercy and fearing their own shortcomings. Humility is not thinking low of yourself, it is thinking honestly about yourself. It is recognizing your dependence on Allah in every breath. The most righteous people were the most humble because they understood how easily the heart can change. The companions of the Prophet feared hypocrisy, not because they lacked faith, but because they knew their deeds were never guaranteed acceptance. To protect ourselves from pride, we must constantly remind our hearts that our deeds are incomplete and our intentions fragile. We must remember our private sins more than our public worship. When we see someone struggling, we should say, "This could be me if Allah had not protected me." That thought alone crushes pride. Ramadan is not meant to produce spiritual arrogance. It is meant to produce brokenness before Allah. Hunger should soften the ego, not inflate it. The more a person grows in worship, the more humble they should become. Because in the sight of Allah, it is not the loudest deeds that rise, but the quiet hearts that know they are nothing without Him. When we examine the mistake of ignoring character while increasing rituals, we confront a painful imbalance that many people experience in Ramadan. Worship increases, schedules fill with prayers and recitation, yet behavior remains unchanged. A person prays more, but their manners stay harsh. They fast, but their patience is thin. They recite Qur'an, but their dealings with people remain unfair. This disconnect slowly drains the spirit of Ramadan and turns worship into form without transformation. Islam was never meant to be rituals without character. The Prophet did not come only to teach people how to pray and fast, he came to perfect character. Ramadan is a training ground where worship is meant to reshape how we speak, react, forgive, and treat others. When rituals increase but character does not soften, it is a sign that worship has not reached the heart. One of the clearest signs of this mistake is when a person becomes more religious but less kind. They are strict with rules but careless with people. They correct others harshly, judge quickly, and show little mercy. This contradicts the spirit of Ramadan, which is built on compassion, patience, and forgiveness. True closeness to Allah should make a person easier to be around, not more difficult. Another sign is when worship becomes an excuse for bad behavior. A person says they are tired from fasting, so they lose their temper. They justify rudeness because they are hungry or stressed. But fasting was prescribed to teach self-control, not to excuse lack of it. If hunger makes us worse, then the lesson of fasting has not been learned. Ignoring character also shows up in relationships. A person may pray at night but break hearts during the day. They may recite Qur'an but hold grudges, refuse to forgive, or speak harshly to family members. These private interactions matter deeply to Allah. Worship that does not improve how we treat those closest to us is incomplete, no matter how impressive it looks publicly. Sometimes this mistake comes from focusing on quantity over quality. People measure success by how much they did, not by who they became. But Ramadan is not a checklist, it is a transformation. A single act of patience, a moment of forgiveness, or a restrained tongue may weigh heavier than hours of ritual worship if it reflects true submission to Allah. Good character is not separate from worship. It is a form of worship. Smiling, forgiving, controlling anger, keeping promises, and showing mercy are all acts beloved to Allah. When these are missing, Rituals lose their light. The Prophet warned that a person may have many deeds, but their harm to others can lead to loss on the Day of Judgment. This is a serious reminder that character protects deeds while bad character destroys them. To correct this mistake, we must intentionally work on our behavior alongside our worship. We should ask ourselves daily, am I becoming more patient, more forgiving, more gentle? If the answer is no, then something needs attention. Ramadan is the best time to rebuild character because the soul is already disciplined. The goal of Ramadan is not to leave the month with more rituals, but with a softer heart and better character. When worship changes who we are, not just what we do, it becomes a shield for our good deeds, and only the worship that reflects in our character is the worship that truly lasts. When we reflect on the mistake of letting Ramadan end without change, we are facing perhaps the most heartbreaking loss of all. This is not a loud sin, nor an obvious failure. It is quiet, subtle, and deeply painful because it happens after a month filled with mercy, forgiveness, and countless opportunities to return to Allah. A person enters Ramadan hopeful, increases in worship, feels moments of closeness to Allah, and then, when the moon of Shawwal appears, everything slowly fades. Life returns to the way it was before, as if Ramadan never happened. Ramadan was never meant to be a temporary spiritual high. It was designed as a turning point, a training ground that reshapes the heart for the rest of the year. Fasting teaches self-control, prayer builds discipline, Qur'an softens the heart, and charity purifies the soul. When these lessons are abandoned the moment Ramadan ends, it reveals that the month was treated as an event, not a transformation. One of the signs that Ramadan ended without change is when worship is immediately reduced to zero. The Qur'an that was opened daily is closed and forgotten. The prayers that were performed with care become rushed again. The nights that were once filled with remembrance return to distraction. This sudden collapse shows that worship as tied to the season, not to Allah. True acceptance is often reflected in continuity, not intensity alone. Another sign is when sins return without resistance. A person may have struggled to leave certain habits during Ramadan, but once it ends, they rush back to them eagerly. There is no guilt, no hesitation, no inner voice reminding them of Allah. This is dangerous because it hardens the heart. Ramadan was meant to weaken our attachment to sin. Returning without struggle means the lesson was not absorbed. Letting Ramadan end without change also shows in character. A person may have been patient, calm, and forgiving during fasting, but once Ramadan ends, anger returns, harsh words return, and grudges return. This means patience was borrowed from hunger, not built in the heart. True growth is seen when good character survives ease, not just difficulty. Many people misunderstand success in Ramadan. They believe success is measured by how much they did in that month alone. But the scholars taught that one of the signs of an accepted Ramadan is that a person is better after it than before it. Acceptance leaves a trace. Even small changes that remain are more valuable than great efforts that disappear. One reason people return to old habits is burnout. They overloaded themselves with unrealistic goals, exhausting their bodies and minds. When Ramadan ends, they feel relief rather than longing. This teaches us that balance is essential. Islam does not demand constant intensity, it values consistency. A small deed done regularly is beloved to Allah. Sustainable worship builds lasting change. Another reason is lack of intention beyond Ramadan. Many people plan for Ramadan, but they do not plan for life after it. They do not ask themselves, which habit will I carry forward? Which sin will I continue to fight? Which relationship will I heal? Without intention, Ramadan becomes isolated in time, disconnected from the rest of the year. Shaitan also plays a role. When Ramadan ends, the restraints are lifted and whispers return stronger. A person who did not build inner discipline will struggle. This is why Ramadan teaches us to fight ourselves first, not just external temptation. The real enemy is not the environment, it is the undisciplined soul. Letting Ramadan pass without change also creates spiritual emptiness. A person remembers the sweetness of worship but feels distant again. This can lead to frustration and hopelessness. Some people think, I was only good in Ramadan, I can never be like that again. This thought is a trick. Allah is not the Lord of Ramadan only, He is the Lord of every day. Change does not mean perfection, it means direction. Even maintaining one habit, one prayer, one page of Qur'an, or one act of charity consistently is a sign of success. Allah does not demand that we remain at Ramadan level worship forever. He asks that we do not return to heedlessness. To prevent Ramadan from ending without change, reflection is necessary. We must sit with ourselves and honestly assess what Ramadan taught us. Which moments brought us closer to Allah? Which sins weakened us the most? Which habits felt life-giving? These answers guide us forward. We must also stay connected to the Qur'an, even in small ways. The Qur'an that accompanied us in Ramadan should not be abandoned. A few verses daily keep the heart alive. Likewise, maintaining voluntary fasting, even once a month, reminds the soul of discipline and gratitude. Community also helps preserve change. Staying connected to righteous people, attending gatherings of knowledge, and surrounding ourselves with reminders protects the heart from slipping back. Isolation often leads to regression. Above all, we must remember that Allah values effort, not outcome. Struggling after Ramadan does not mean failure, giving up does. Every time we return to Allah, He welcomes us. Every step taken toward Him matters, no matter how small. Ramadan is a guest that leaves, but its purpose remains. If it passes through our lives without changing us, then we have missed something precious. But if it leaves behind humility, awareness, and a renewed commitment to Allah, then its light continues long after the month is gone. The real question is not how Ramadan treated us, but how we treated Ramadan. And the true success of this blessed month is not in its ending, but in what remains after it.